All right, so I think Nick's outside starting to work on the semi truck, so let's go visit with him. So as you can see, he's pulled up right here on the curbside with us. Kind of treat it like a mobile service at this point. Does this all the time on semi trucks, and he goes out to Hack Nation and other places like that. And he loves it when I show up and irritate him. So, all right. So we identified the other day that it was a leaking condenser. You'll see that in the first part of the video. So I assume, Nick, that's what you're doing right now, is taking the old one out.
Yeah, I'm working on getting everything loose here.
And we take that out, and then we'll put the other condenser in, and hopefully Nick will get the right wrench.
No, I got the right wrench. It's just it always irritates me when people use 11 millimeter. Why not make it a 10 or a 12?
10 or 12, something. Yeah, why does it have to be that?
Weird. Do that to irritate me.
I think so. I think most of these guys, when they design him, think, what would really annoy Nick today on his service call?
They're always out to get me.
Anyway, so after we put the condenser in, then we've got to go back through, like Aaron was saying earlier.
We're going to flush out as much as we can. Engine valves look, well, we might be able to get that out. We're just worried because we're trying not to open up a can of worms with this truck. So ultimately what we're going to try and do is we're going to remove the condenser, replace the condenser, and all the lines associated that go here. We're going to just go ahead and pull off. I'm going to flush them out, and then we're going to put it in a vacuum, fill it up, and then just watch what the pressures do. And if there's more that needs to be done, then we'll go from there.
Yeah, and that's what our high pressure test does a great job of. You know, if we can take the thing up to 250, 300 pounds of pressure on that thing, it's going to reveal any other issues after we replace that part. So we don't send him on, and then, you know, a few days later, it all goes bad. Yes, of course I want to see something. Go ahead.
Look at that. It's a captured nut, but it's a spinning captured nut. Wonderful.
This is where some special MacGyvering comes in.
But just got to put some pressure on it, some light pressure.
Hey, you never know. Some guy might be watching this somewhere and go, oh, that's how I get that thing out of there.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go and switch over to a ratchet wrench.
I'm gonna
got room for it.
I'm going to let Nick get to work. We'll check back in a bit. Hey, bud. So where you at?
So I've got the condenser off. I've just got done finishing flushing all the lines. Now I'm just putting new O-rings and putting some Nylog on there.
The famous Nylog.
Famous Nylog.
We love it.
So that's what I'm up to right now. As soon as that's done, I'm going to throw it all back together, throw it under a vacuum, and then pressure test it, and then back under a vacuum, and then hit it with some gas and see what we got for pressures.
Yeah. Hopefully that's it and it's all done, but we go down the rabbit hole wherever it leads us.
It's never quite right with semi-trucks. A lot of semi-truck drivers will try and do their own repairs, which always ends up, like I've seen some pretty gnarly stuff on semi-trucks where you're like, how does this even work? And people will be hardwiring their compressors in, and then you got to figure out why it wasn't working in the first place. It's usually a crapshoot, so.
Yeah. So basically you're saying that the handyman trying to save a little money sometimes does more harm than good?
Yeah. Yeah.
It kind of, yeah.
Especially when they don't know how a system works. They're just kind of putting Band-Aids on it, hoping it'll get them by for the summer, and then sometimes it works for a couple years, but then when things go awry and we get called out, it's usually a bird's nest of issues.
I always say I understand that people are trying to save money, but I don't think a lot of people understand that
it's only costing them more money down the road.
It's easier to mess stuff up than it is to get it right.
Always. Every time.
All right. Checking back in with Nick, it looks like he's taking out the old condenser and is putting in the new one. That looks kind of new though there, Nick.
Yeah, well he put a new one in it and it kind of exploded.
Well, it kind of had a little protrusion. Is that a good word for it?
I would say like a pinhole leak.
Right.
Is what I would describe it as. It was leaking right out the middle in one of the fins. So, but working on getting this thing situated. Right now I'm just installing the AC hoses, so this is like your bigger hoses are going to be your what you call suction hoses, and then your skinny lines here with the bigger fitting on it is going to be what you call a pressure line or a high side line. And I'm just getting all those fastened up. I've already got the compressor lines mounted, and I'm just working on getting the I would call this a junction right here, because these lines go up and they go up towards the expansion valve, and there's lines that go out the back that go towards the cabin. So that way when he's parked at night, or is this a sleeper? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So this is a sleeper unit. So at night, most truckers will have an auxiliary unit. That way you don't have to run the giant engine that shakes the truck all night.
Right.
But in some cases, they'll just end up sitting off somewhere, and then they can turn off their front AC and they can switch over to rear, and it works off of the main AC system.
Well, and then we've also put in some mini splits, and then I've seen where a lot of the truckers are putting those in as well, right? Well, now what's the benefit of putting in a mini split when just kind of for truckers especially?
If you have like an auxiliary power unit that you don't need to run your engine to keep alive, one, you're saving gas, or diesel I should say. You're saving diesel costs by not running your ginormous motor. And second to that is sometimes a mini split can actually cool off a closed off area such as like the back cabin a little bit better than say like an AC vent or just like standard AC out of a car's vent.
Yeah.
And it's a hell of a lot quieter. It's very, very quiet.
Yeah. Well, and then I would say just the amount of airflow those tend to generate seems to be a lot.
Oh yeah,
a lot more as well.
It's noticeable.
Yeah. All right, so I came out. Nick was. We found the reason the fan wasn't coming on, but I'll let Nick explain it. He's the pro.
So what happened is that on this connector right here, right there, that's our high side pressure switch. And when your AC system gets above a certain set PSI by the system, it will engage the fan, this guy. And what the problem is on this one is that when the connector was plugged in, I guess maybe the angle was wrong, but basically the connector missed the pins and it pushed the pins down underneath the connector, causing it to basically be an open circuit. So we just went ahead and corrected that. I'm going to finish doing some more, we're going to get ready to hook it up to a pressure test. And then after that, once I get some Freon on the system, we can make sure it operates properly. But that is definitely something that can make a AC system explode. If you got no fan and you have an AC system that's running, pressures are going to creep up, 300 PSI plus. And once you get to about 450, 500, it starts wearing on things pretty heavily. So that can definitely be a reason why we have a pinhole in the condenser.
Yeah, so that little small thing like that can have a dramatic impact.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, most cars, like just modern cars, are gonna not allow the AC system to work at all with any of the sensors unplugged most of the time. Now on semi trucks, it's a little bit different. It's a much older design, so if like you unplug a sensor, it's still going to let the compressor engage. It just won't work properly. Just run until it doesn't.
So. All right, Nick, so just explain what part of the procedure you're at now.
So right now I've got it hooked up to my vacuum pump. I'm putting it under vacuum before I put test gas in it. That way we're not using test gas and a combination of just stagnant air in the system. So we make sure it's completely vacuumed, gets most of the moisture out, and then when we put the test gas in, that actually extracts even more moisture out of the system. So it's going to be a really dry system by the time I actually put Freon in it when it's ready to go. So I've got my bottle open. We're still at -14, up to 250 for this system. It's a bigger volume. On cars, we'll go about 200, 210 is where I like to set them, but on semi-trucks, I like to set it up close to 250. So we're just going to let her climb. Okay, we're right at 250.
Just kind of explain, like, why 250 into that area. What's, obviously
so
nobody else is doing
higher volume systems, if you go a little bit lower pressure, a lot of times you won't, like if there is a leak on these, and for instance, a big leak that I always find on like the Peterbilts and the Kenworths is that they'll have a line, and this is a little bit different of a design, but on the Kenworth and the Peterbilts, they'll have a line that comes off the compressor, the high side line, and it'll route around and up towards the condenser on the driver's side. And a lot of times when those are in the shop at diesel shops, and they don't really mess with AC. They don't really know how it works. They end up stressing those lines a lot when they're pulling motors. And a lot of times when I put 250 PSI in it, anything lower, it won't affect it. But as soon as it hits 250, it'll explode. So, and those lines are rated up to 450 PSI, 500 PSI. So,
Yeah, so it's no problem.
yeah, it's not a problem doing that. But
So it's kind of a stress test for the system, right?
making sure all the rubber lines aren't stretched and just wore out. When we set semi-trucks on 250, a lot of times they're not fully equalized. So what will happen is that we'll actually have a pretty significant pressure drop-off. So usually the standard procedure for me is I'll set a timer for 5 minutes after initially setting the pressure test, just to let the pressure sit down. With this one, I did back off on the pressure test a little bit. So we're still at 225 and 226, which tells me we're good. On most semi-trucks, if this was a car, I would be like, okay, we got a leak somewhere. But since this is a semi-truck, this is something that's not really of concern to me, because these lines are so massive and they have such huge volumes that if there's a leak, most of the time you'll hear it, or most of the time this will drop all the way down to like 150 is usually the number. But if it stays above 200, then I know we're good. I'll unlock this off, pull this guy out. And then we're just gonna go ahead and vent our test gas. And then from there, we're gonna go right to our vacuum pump. Turn on our vacuum pump, screw on our fitting, let her suck down to -14. We'll set the vacuum and set that for 15 minutes, let it run. That way we get all the moisture out of the system. And then once that's done, put an ounce of lubricant, PAG oil, dye, whatever you want to call it, and then we'll hit it with some Freon. Yeah, it does not look like this semi-truck has a placard, so, which is common. When it comes to filling it up, we just got to do it by pretty much eyeball and ear. I'll set usually the minimum is 2 pounds is what I'll put in it initially, and then we'll run the truck. We'll watch pressures. If I'm still on my low side a little bit too low, I'll add more and more and more until we get to right where I want to be on my low side pressure, and then we just let it ride.
All right, I think Nick is just about finishing up, so we're gonna come over here and see what he found. So what's left is to recharge it, correct?
Yep. We're gonna add some oil and dye to it.
Add some oil and dye to it, the refrigerant, and we should be good.
I got my fancy smashy scale, my Bluetooth scale, so I can use my phone instead of a remote. And we're gonna go and throw 2 pounds in it.
Show them your fancy smancy calculations here. There you go.
So we're just gonna watch until we get to 2 pounds. Actually, I'll probably start at 1.5, and then we'll fire it up and watch it from there.
You kind of work your way up until you find the sweet spot, basically? Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, better to start low than to start too high, because then you got to start all over again.
Yeah. Our friends here have been long enough.
Alright, whenever you're ready to fire it up. Careful walking across.
And don't get run over at the last minute.
Yeah. Dropping down. Pressure's still engaged. Alright, we're at 26, 25, so we're gonna add more. We're gonna charge it up to 2 pounds. 13, 14, 15, 16 ounces. A little bit more. Alright, that's 16, so that's 2 pounds. We're watching, the number I'm looking at is this number right here, 70. So the compressor just shut off. Like we're doing it being too low. Give it a second, it'll come back on. But this should drop to around 35. So I'm pretty sure that this low side is still getting down pretty far. So see how it's still creeping down?
Yeah.
It'll likely shut the compressor off once it gets down to a certain threshold, which is what happened earlier. It got down at 20 and it's got a low side pressure switch, which is much further in from where we're hooked up at. So it's likely a little bit lower. But we're chilling right at 34 right now. It's kind of balancing out. We'll feel our lines. Start to cool off. So I'm gonna go ahead and up it to 2.5 pounds. So we're gonna go up to 8 ounces right here, half at 16. And right now it's also in high idle, so it's gonna pull the low side down just a little bit further than normal. That looks about good right there, but I'm gonna go a little bit further. I'm looking for about 36 to 40. Alright, so we're at 2 pounds, 15 ounces right now. Alright, so we're at 3 pounds.
Working now, I take it?
Yeah. Just making sure our entry line and our exit line are cold. Making sure it was getting power commanded on. If it was getting power commanded on, then I know our clutch is bad. But if it just like took power from the clutch, that's all I was verifying, was just to make sure that it was shutting the compressor down purposefully and not just randomly turning off.
Gotcha.
Because that can be a problem on these trucks, especially when they get old. They got contaminants all over them when they're dirty from working.
Gotcha.
So, but this right here, that fan just came on. It's gonna bring that high side pressure way down. And that's what we're looking for right there. So with that high side pressure switch disconnected, that fan's not gonna do what it needs to do. So that's working exactly as it should. And we're also still in high idle, so that fan comes on, brings that down, and brings this down. So this is working properly as of right now.